Welcome back by Blue Mountain Creative Space. We're going into lesson 3 about photo shoot, and we're going to have a good time in remembering and looking out and checking out what we can do to make this photo shoot of yours perfect. Alright, so my name is Tjalling Halbertsma. This is lesson number 3 of a series of 4 to get you on the road and making a good photo shoot. So let's dive into here. So lesson 3, it's all about the photo shoot. So as we talked about previous lessons about how to prepare, we will come back and remind you of a couple of things again. It's a week later, and unfortunately I cannot be there with you on the photo shoot to guide you. So and we have to do it all with reminders and ideas and some good tips. So you will see a couple of times these words, let's do this. And this is especially for you who is watching, and maybe you're thinking like, oh, maybe I do it the next time, maybe I will do it another time, or when the weather is better, etc., etc. I would recommend you to do it anyway. Because you cannot make a mistake, you cannot fail, you can only learn, and if you do this whole program, you've learned so much that the next time will be easier. You get into a kind of memory, and then you can apply it with more relaxation. So let's do this. We will discuss, right, to-do list, the photo shoot list, what will you have to take with you, techniques to help your story, tips for portraiture, and tips for long exposure. And if you listen well, either 1, 2, 3, or 4, if you do another subject, you do series, same amount of tips are valuable. Okay, so this week, after your preparation of last week and thinking about it and planning things, now that you are about to do the actual shooting, some reminders and tips are really, really helpful. But use what is appropriate for you. It's not applied to all, it's applied to you who can use it. All right, here comes the photo shoot list. So, the camera, that's of course number 1. You can decide if you have it set on RAW, on JPEG, or on RAW and JPEG. Sometimes you have a camera with 2 card slots, and then you can do one on RAW and one on JPEG. It's always good to have a camera with 2 slots because you have a kind of a backup. If it happens that while you're making a photo something goes wrong, check always your work after you make some test photos on the location or wherever you shoot, just to make sure that it is on the card. Even an SD card can fail, and that's what all professional photographers say. Just make sure, double check, and see if there's a backup slot too. The camera, it's best to set the camera at home in the position that you like, because on the set or if on location and you have people around you, you just want to be in control. If you confront yourself with camera, oh shucks, what kind of settings do I have to do? And wait a minute, then you're already getting a little stressed there. So I would suggest to prepare it as much as you can at home. You will always need to adjust it on the set or in the studio or wherever you are. Just make sure you're comfortable with your settings and your camera. That's what I can recommend. Lenses, I would always take 2 lenses with you if you have. For example, maybe you want to have like a zoom lens and you have a prime lens. A prime lens is that you cannot zoom it, it's on 1 focal length and that's it. At least because if you didn't scout your location, then you have to decide on the spot which kind of lens you're going to use. If you scouted the location, you probably found out which lens is the best for you. Also, that is important to do a little checkup before and get stuff ready. I always put things down on my table. I gotta make sure that I have everything. Sometimes I even have the list with me and I just, tick it off. The more you are prepared, the relaxeder you are on your set, and you can focus on the direction of the people or the situation or whatever. Of course, you need to charge your batteries a day before and not at 12 o'clock at night, because if you have like 2 or 3 batteries, you would just want to be sure that you have them all. Start in the morning before and then make sure you have them all full. Don't think like, I need only one batteries, little job, because that's exactly when it happens that you forget to switch off your camera and the battery is empty. SD cards, the little cards that you put into the side of your camera in the slots, make sure that they're empty or format them in the camera so that they're totally ready. I had SD cards full of images on a certain shoot, and then I ran into a full card after, I don't know, 10 images. I was like, oh, how could you forget that? But then you have to manually erase the images one by one, because the previous 10 that you shoot already, you didn't want to lose them. So it was pretty silly from me. The tripod, of course, you need a tripod. It's to make sure that there's no vibration, and if you have a lower light situation, you can use it all, and more at comfort. Connection wires, maybe you connect it to your laptop. I don't know how technical you are, but you should put it out all on the table, my camera, the connection cables, the SD cards, so you see everything in one time. If you have lights, the LED lights or whatever lights, stands for the lights, cords, reflection board. Reflection board, that's the white part that you use on the side. So if the light comes from here, you use the board here to a little bit fill up the shadows here. But you need an assistant for it, for that case. Right, for each subject, think about, of course, take the COVID measures. Take them with you. Make sure that you don't mess around with that, and that other people who are with you feel comfortable about it. The different clothes on set, makeup for model, yeah, so these are the things that you have to think of. If you have a bigger production, somebody takes care of that and all that kind of stuff. But if you're with just 2 and you make 1 portrait of a person and you would like to use makeup, then you gotta make sure that you have all the stuff. If you do food, make sure that it's prepared or ready. Don't let it come to, oh, I still have to get some eggs or whatever, some butter, because the shop will be full and all that kind of stuff. So you make sure you have it ready. The props, whatever props you needed. Last night it was -2, -4, it's April. Just make sure that you have warm clothes, because if you stand a long time in the field, you get cold. Appointments, confirm them, manage the whole thing. If you are shooting pets, the cookies, give them a little carpet to sit on, or a towel, or background paper, a comb, maybe paper towels, because they might be drooling because they're panting in your warm studio. Anyway, these kind of things that you have to think of to make sure that everything gets smooth the moment you shoot. Assistant, I highly recommend somebody that can help you with all kind of little things. It's sometimes easier when you are with the camera and ask, can you move that? Can you put the light a little bit on the side? If you walk back and forth all the time, you lose kind of control. You go into the smaller job, so I highly recommend it. All right, let's do this. The techniques to help your stories. This is also more or less a repetition of what I previously mentioned in earlier sessions also in other lessons we did before. Because you cannot forget it when you're on site. You kind of have it in your memory, right? So when you are shooting, make sure that you look at the composition. The composition is kind of the balance in that particular image, which is a small segment of everything that you can photograph. But in there, it gives balance, or it gives you chaos. It's whatever you feel is needed for your expression of your image, but it does a lot. It does a lot. The patterns, for example, we will have another image later on. Everything in the background can be either disturbing or adding to your image. That's the way you have to do. So you have to look at, okay, I'm looking at the person, what is in the back? Does it help or does it not help? If you say, well, it doesn't matter, it does matter. It does matter into the energy of your whole image. Same for colors. Colors can pop in the image, give you quality. They can also be disturbant if, let's say, you do the portrait or product and your eye goes to the color first and then to the product, then you have kind of a loss of attention. Foreground, background, for example, this is kind of annoying for you because you have like this strange bulky computer. So we put it on the side, and that's a decision of the director of photography. Make sure that it's everything that you see in the image, so as in the foreground, as in the background, kind of adding to your story. Leading lines is not necessary, but it's something, an aspect that you can look at. For example, if you're on a train track, that's a very obvious one. If you stand on the side and the train track kind of disappears in the distance, but out of the side of the image, it has less impact than when it stays in the image and all the way it goes to the end. Or actually, if I look at from the camera, it goes all the way in the end. It has a kind of strong visual impact. Negative space, I will show you an image later on that has negative space, and negative space can be really beautiful. If you have one person in the image and there's a lot of negative space, it puts emphasis on the person itself and on the space itself. I really love negative space, it can do a lot. Contrast, of course, I mentioned that before. Contrast is a tool. It's not only something that is happening because of sunlight and there's contrast, but contrast is also the kind of intention of the image. You can use contrast to make the image strong, and you can soften the contrast to make your image more gentle, for example. Here we go. Contrast, a little bit more in depth of contrast, because it's actually a beautiful tool and it's way more rich and useful than you kind of would think. The dark and light aspect. So, for example, now we have two lights and my face is well lit, for example. But if you want to have a dramatic portrait, you might as well have only this light and not that light and not the window that's over there. And then you have just like a stark line here, and it's darker here and it's light here. My eye will probably be lit, and this one probably will be kind of more in the dark. And that gives a real contrast look, a raw look, a contrasty look, and can be really beautiful. But the more you do it with intention, the better it is. Poor and rich. It's just to name that in every story, if you look at, for example, I don't know, Disney Plus or Netflix or whatever you look, all these stories have contrast, really, all of them. And that's why they use so much guns and violence and all that stuff, because there's a person with a good heart and there's the bad guy. And how can you make the bad guy better? Is give him a gun, right? So this constant play between contrast. So poor and rich, friendly and unfriendly, and the list goes on and on. High and low, movement and stillness. So in your image you can also let somebody move, and also at the same time a second person can sit still. You all know these images of from a high riser, and then you see the street and you see all kind of people moving in a long exposure shot. Can be really, really nice. Even landscape, the rocks, and then the water that comes in, and that has movement, but the rocks are standing still. It's a beautiful tool, and that's only in photography, right? Death and life, well, for example, I don't want to make it too dramatic here for you, but if you do, for example, landscape, and you have very dry section, but there's a river, and around the river there's more green and more life, you can use that too. So you can apply that not only to portraiture or a dramatic shot, but also to landscape. Old and new, well, you can imagine what you all can do with it. So here are some examples. Probably you've seen this before if you look at my education lessons more often. I really kind of like this image because it takes a simple thing, just an in-house photography session, to an expression to what's going on. It tells a story. If you take it out of the house and show it somewhere else and to other people, they suddenly have an impression what was going on in your house. I'm intrigued. I must say I'm intrigued by the wall. The wall is kind of, I have no clue what the wall is. There's some kind of strange stripes on it, but it's not the point. It's the whole dynamic between a little girl that probably doesn't want mom to leave. But the funny thing is, there's still somebody with a camera in the room making the photo, but the action you see is like there's almost nobody except the child and the parent. And there is a lot of negative space in it. That's that wall. Right. This is the other one. This is specifically about light. So this could be a moment of that you suddenly realize, oh wow, this is beautiful, and you grab your phone and you make that image. And they're totally unplanned. And then that's what I love about photography. You can, especially with the cell phones, you have it with you, and it's in an instant you can have a beautiful image. Have you seen that there's even light right exactly in the eye of the kiddo? It's amazing. Anyway, this is also a daily life situation. So even though the background is really colorful and there's a lot of stuff, it's not really disturbing because it's completely in the environment. You know where it is, it's in a shop, and you know that the kid is in the little trolley in front of it. This is also something you can make your own story of this image. The photographer can tell you what was going on, but as a viewer you can interpret things. Same for this one. What's going on here? And I show you these images because when you do your photo shoot, I just want you to let you know, you don't need to rent an expensive studio, you don't need to make it all fancy. You can do it at home, because at home so much is actually all happening. But because you see it daily, on a daily basis, you think it's not really interesting. But if you make a shot and you take it out of your environment, then it probably is very interesting. Same here. This could be all COVID stuff, right? All these photos could be in lockdowns. Anyway, this is, for example, I really like it because although the parents are most sharp, the kids in the front, you can see them very well. And there's the whole family, there's the whole action, and all the faces are clear. So it doesn't matter if some things are not 100% sharp. the expression or the moment, it tells it all, and that's what counts. Good. So this is my opinion about it. Life is one gigantic story, and the same for you. It's not my story only. Everybody has their own stories. So you're unique, and you have stories to tell. Even if you think it's not significant, or I'm not sure if it's interesting, It is. It truly is. Passion, experience, and balance, yeah. So use your passion, use your experience. It's not wrong to embellish, and that's what I meant with the contrast. It's not a must, but you can absolutely use it. Use your techniques and use your angles well. That we talked about. All right, don't forget, let's do this. Make sure you do the photo. Tips for portraiture. All right, this is also to remember. If you're going to shoot, where are you going to shoot? What kind of background? And you can change it. If there's a certain wall in your surrounding that has a beautiful pattern, or a brick wall, or a wood wall, or a tree, a big tree trunk, or it doesn't matter. Look at what kind of background. Does it help, or doesn't help at all? What kind of light? Natural? Do you use the window? Do you use the sky, the sun, or do you use a flash? Maybe a flash on your camera, maybe an LED light that you bought. It's just consideration, and do what makes you feel comfortable. Position of the person to be photographed. There's a lot of difference. If somebody is like this, or just like this, or every pose, every movement in a pose is different and can have a different expression. So be aware of that, and you can use it. The angle of your camera, how do you want to position the person, from up or front, from down below, from the side. Play with it. Then here are your camera settings. I don't know what kind of project you do, but consider if you want to have, like, for example, if you photograph a person, the eyes sharp and the rest is in blur, or you want to have the person sharp and the surroundings are also sharp. That's just a personal choice, so I cannot really say what is better. I bought a camera, but I have it actually on loan. It's a new Canon camera, and the lens is just phenomenal. It's so sharp, and it's a 1.2 lens, so if the eyes are sharp, then it starts already to be blurred here. And the camera has a really good eye focus, outer focus on the eyes, so it's kind of, it used to miss a lot of photos to have your eyes sharp, but now it's really reduced a lot. It's phenomenal to see how the f1.2 works. I find it exciting to do that, but it really depends on what kind of project you're in. I would say don't go lower than 125 shutter unless you have a camera and you're stable with it. But 125 keeps everything kind of sharp. But if you do like 1/60 of a second, you might miss a sharp image. ISO 200, 2000 above it, depending on your new camera, because the new Canon camera had like above 3000 was still good. There was not much grain in there. But yeah, look at between 200 and 1000, maybe 1600. And white balance, I would just put it on auto. So with portraiture, mentioned this before, your connection is very important. The ones who's sitting in front of you feels a little nervous or insecure, doesn't know what to do, because it's kind of taken out of its natural surroundings. So yeah, communicate with it, make sure you have a good relation, and tell her what you do, and keep contact with it. Don't be like a unfriendly boss behind the camera, because it mostly doesn't work. Anyway, the eyes are the gateways. Right. It's so important to keep the eye sharp. That's probably your best bet, right? So make sure that you focus until your eyes are sharp. That's the most important part. Unless you make a photo of somebody eating and you want to have the fork sharp and not the eyes. I get that. So, if you have LED lights, you're using LED lights, just make sure that you play with it. What works? Up there, a little bit there, and then you look through your camera again and then say, okay, it's too much shadow or not enough shadow. For example, here you have one light, so that gives that harsh shadow, as I mentioned before. That's the typical contrast shadow. Here you have two lights. Now you have lights from the side, but you have a bit of a stripe in the middle. It's too much, but it was just to show you. And here you have one big light in front of, and then you have more of the face. You could change the light a little bit more to make sure that you have less shadow here by the nose. It's just a small tip, so then you have to move your light a little bit. And this is the light you have almost from the front, and then shows all the eyes and everything. So here some people want to do some long exposure. If you're going to do long exposure, it's really fun, especially with the lights. If you use a normal torch and you put a little bit of a colored film in front of it, just play around, have some fun with it, especially around people. You can do it around the car, around anything. If you have a nice object, you can light it from here and from here. If you do the night sky, make sure that you are dressed warm. Especially here in northern Ontario, you have incredible spots where you can see the night sky. Long exposure, I mentioned that in another lesson extensively. Play with the shutter time, because sometimes the sky is darker or lighter depending on the moon and everything, so you have to find that sweet spot. Street photography, if you live in the city, it also has to do with long exposure, shutter time, longer, moving your camera while your shutter is still open. So, for example, if you do in a more darker area, take 15 seconds, an aperture of 5.6, you are kind of safe, and 100 ISO, and then you make a shot. If that doesn't work, you step to the next. You do maybe 30 seconds and ISO, I don't know, 400. So you do it gradually, you step it up, and that's how you learn. That's how you see how it works. Adjust your settings if result is not okay to 40 seconds, whatever. And especially with stars and with the torches that you use, light painting, use a tripod. If you're in the city, you probably want to have it in your hand. The bulb mode, it's not on every camera, but the bulb mode is a matter of that you hold the press button down and wait till you see the image kind of develop on your back screen. Again, it's a matter of experimenting. Not all cameras are the same sensitivity, so you have to play around with that. The live view builds up the image in live mode, so you click on it and then you see it happening, and then when there's enough light, it stops recording, and then the dimmer light comes on back. Convenient for stars and firework photography. All right, more reminders. We're full of reminders this time. As I said before, raw or intuitive on-the-spot creating, as you saw a couple of photos that you saw before. That's one way of expressing. That's just on the spot, and you're on it. On the other side, you have a prepared execution of your photographs. Plan your work and work your plan. Just like you prepare for a holiday or for something for a business. Both are good, whatever fits to your like. So here, my experience, I really love to use storytelling in photography because it gives meaning for myself. It gives up meaning for the one who watches it. There are more layers into it. And it's all about the energy you put into a photo. So it definitely helped me to see things better and express myself in different ways that I didn't find another way to do. So with storytelling you can go as far as you want and as your limit is. Let's do it. So, anyway, here's my email, Tjalling, the Blue Mountain Creative Space, tbmcs@gmail.com. You can connect with me, ask questions if you doubt of certain things or have certain ideas about the shoot. Go ahead, fire it away. I react on the same day. So if you're planning for a photo shoot and you have a little question, I'm right up there. Thank you very much for watching. Really wish you good luck with the shooting. It's a fun experience. It doesn't matter if you're a little nervous or you don't have it all together. You do it now, you learn from it. The second time you learn even more, and it keeps going and you get better and better. But at least I cut down little sections for you, so your brain is a little bit more ordered and you step in hopefully with a little bit more confidence. So I'll be seeing you next week when we are discussing the post-production. You made the images and then we put them in the computer, and what are you going to do next? I also have that ready for you. Thanks for watching. Good luck with your photo shoot and see you next week. Thank you.